going to move on to our next generation conversations. Go ahead. Introduce yourself, young lady.
Hi, family. I'm Iman.
And now we're going to have our guest. He's finna step in now.
Hello, family. I'm Ron Johnson. Glad to be here.
Okay. So we got our guest in, and we're going to do our next generation conversation. We have some questions. So if you would like to, you can call in to the show live. You can reach us at 615. The number is 227-1470. Again, the number to call into the show live is 615. The number is 227-1470. Okay, so we'll start off with our first question on the next generation conversations. Do you think that we set your generation up for success? Did we give you the tools? Did we give you the skills? Do you think we set you all up for success?
As a whole?
As a whole, yeah, in general. Yes.
No.
No? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead with that.
I'll say again, like we said last time, technology definitely has its challenges with us because we don't, we take the process out of everything.
Okay.
We're so used to.
Explain that.
So we don't see things from conception to completion.
Okay.
So when we get an assignment, and our first thing is to Google or Wikipedia or some type of online source.
Okay.
We don't wait in the line at the library to check out a book to actually research the chapter that the specific topic is about. Everything is in our handed to us. Text messages, calls, FaceTimes.
Absolutely.
Instant messages, all that kind of stuff. Everything is instant. Popcorn.
Microwave.
Okay. Gas stations.
Got it. Gotcha.
Even Kroger. Kroger has Kroger even has a where you pull up and you get your groceries and you can click online. So I think I don't think we've been set up.
So Ryan, what do you think? Give us your.
Well, first I want to say to the younger generation or the next generation is I'm sorry. I'm totally sorry. I totally apologize for the role that I played in not preparing you for what you're dealing with right now.
Okay.
But I also would have to say that I would have to apologize for my parents and their parents and their parents, because you have to know that, especially being a black man, there are traps that have been set for years.
Absolutely.
And those traps got a lot of us. But some of us who made it out of those traps have been able to set up something so you have a foundation to be able to stand on right now, with a few tools that you can use that can help you be able to advance. So I'm sorry for what I was not able to do, but I couldn't teach you something that I didn't know. I'm totally sorry for that.
Oh, that's deep. Well, I just want to tell everybody that I've been surrounded by men that knew their tools, like my dad and Uncle Ron here and all the other men that my dad has placed in my life. It's super important. So my launch pad is a little different than everybody else's launch pad. So I appreciate you guys.
This is the biggest and fastest change I think we've had in our human history, as far as generational change, as far as, this technology piece. It was bigger than the agricultural, the industrial. It was so much bigger because it's coming so much faster. It doesn't impact a certain part of the country or a certain part of the community. It impacts the entire world simultaneously, every 90 days, every 6 months. So since that is so big, it's the technological age has impacted everything and everybody. It's impacted our religion. So now you can do a sermon where the Bible is in a notepad. You can read it right off the notepad. So then it affects our education. We have online schools. It affects our economics, where we can get on the cell phone and we can handle our bank and balance our checkbook. It's a major communication tool. It affects our communication. You have Uber. You can call up and get a ride straight from your house. The relationships on social media is huge. So now that we have this big impact, I'm trying to figure out how do we try to navigate through this. So I will start off with you, Iman. Do you think that the jobs are more stable or unstable today than they were in the past?
I don't think I'm the correct person to ask this.
Okay, no, we're going to get both sides. So you go ahead. From what you see, from what you've heard, because you have some life experience. So we just want to get both sides.
Are they stable?
More stable or unstable?
I would say that they're more unstable.
Okay.
Just because people don't have value in their job like they used to before. Like when you had the plant jobs.
Okay.
It was something that you were in for 10 plus years. Now, and me myself, people have jobs, different jobs throughout the entire year.
Gotcha.
So within a 12-month time span, you could have one or two different jobs, whereas in before, it was one job for 10 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
So our length of time measurement job-wise are two totally different.
So it's more microwave. It's
Absolutely.
the technology is making it
Absolutely.
more of a microwave employment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mr. Ron.
Well, when you think about a job and a career, those are two different
Right,
There you
gotcha.
dynamics.
So yeah,
what
there you go.
we're dealing with right now is the younger generations are not really into the heavy career aspects of making money. They're looking for a job to make that money now.
Mm-hmm.
The older generation was looking for a career to where they can work to retire. Well, I say that, they both have its pros and cons, because if you didn't have a skill back in the day, it was virtually impossible to get a good enough career to say you'd be able to retire and have something decent to retire on.
Right.
But then if you got into a factory or you worked as a carpenter or a contractor or something like that, you had a pretty decent career. But working in fast food, that was a different thing back in the day, because you're talking, $1.25 an hour working at fast food. And even now, the fast food workers are making, so much less. So therefore, it's a job, and they're always looking for something new. And that is the thing. If you're going to work and always looking for something new, it's hard to get settled in doing what it is that you need to do to be successful.
So you think so? Because I like your definition. You put it. So I was saying a career and a job simultaneously, but when you put it clearly like that, do you think we switched from careers to having jobs for the most part?
Oh, we did. We
Okay,
did.
there you
yes,
go.
we switched from
There you
careers because you're thinking right now. You take a 25-year-old that graduates from college with a pretty good degree, say for instance an engineering degree, and they don't be able to go right into their field.
Mhm.
They'll basically take a job because, one, those student loans that they have
Yes, sir.
acquired are coming right
Yes,
at them.
sir.
And they got to find a way to pay it. And so therefore that may be 3 or 4 different types of jobs that they may have to work to make ends meet. Then you take someone but I always have to go back to this. If you are a black man in this country, and it's a tougher thing for you, because you got to be 2 times smarter. You have to work 3 or 4 times harder in order to get into the right types of careers, to be successful and to be able to live to retire, for the most part. But then when you work a job, it could end up being something that could burn you out a whole lot faster than a career. Because if you're working something that you love to do, it's not a job.
Mm-hmm.
It's just who you are
I
then.
agree.
But when you're doing something that you're having to do it to pay bills, it will get old.
That's
and
right.
it will wear out.
No doubt. Absolutely. I was watching a documentary, and it was just showing, just speaking on this very thing, how now, even in government jobs, they're trying to make people private contractors instead of making them employees, because they don't have to pay the workman comp. They don't have to do holidays. They don't have to do the sick days. They don't have to pay for vacation days. They don't have to do all this under unemployment. Mm-hmm. So if they make them private contractors, so that's why they allow them to work from home, because they're trying to change the status of the worker in the workforce, and they're doing this across the board. So you see they had that big stink about the Uber thing about the drivers. They were saying, hey, we're up under some guidelines like we work for a corporation. So we can't be independent contractors because you have so much control over what we do. So they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. So it's a big lawsuit going on if you want to look into that. But so they're trying to change the workplace into jobs from careers, and they're making people independent contractors instead of employees. So yeah, that was great how you cleared that up on both of those, on the job and the career side. Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. So we're gonna start with you, Iman. Do you think that praise and celebration of accomplishments helps your generation? The praise of accomplishments, the praise and celebration of accomplishments.
That's goes both ways.
Okay.
One, because I feel like my generation, we were brought up in the tournaments where everybody wins.
Right.
Everybody gets a trophy. You go home with something. It's not how life works. I'm not putting my kids
I'm
in that.
laughing,
I'm not putting my kids in those
Oh, I
type
love
of
it.
tournaments.
I love it.
So I think yes, it does help us. Again, because social media, I think, like I said last time, has a really big impact on how my generation views life.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said last time, if I see somebody on social media and she has bigger boobs than me, her bottom is bigger than mine, her waist is smaller than mine, her skin seems clearer than mine. You know, she's posting pictures and she's in Cabo, she's in Puerto Rico, she's in Thailand, she's in Dubai. I'm going to think, and we're the same age, I'm going to think that she's doing better in life. But I see, like again, I said, I'm not seeing her room. I'm not seeing her house. I'm not seeing the things that she deals with on a daily basis. So, yes, I think daily affirmations do work. Like, hey, you're doing a great job. You know, you are a lot further than you came from. Or you're doing a lot better than those that are around you. Just things like that. And just as humans, I think it's nice to hear.
Okay.
You know.
Ryan, go ahead.
You know, so it does work both ways, and I love what you said, Niece. But one of the things that I say is you know, you can be congratulated for winning in or losing a game, but there's no feeling like to be the one on the other side of the win.
Absolutely.
As a child, as an adult, when you win, it's just a totally different feeling. Even when you're a child and everybody gets a trophy, you still know the difference between losing and winning. So that's one thing. But then the other thing, when you think about being congratulated or being, praised, I just think that, that's an inside job. Because, see, I have this thing that I say, the inner me is the enemy. That's the thing that we wrestle and fight the most, but most of us don't understand how to fight that battle.
Right.
So I'd say my whole thing about, praise is, what do you say to yourself? I tell myself every day, you are an amazing guy and you're going to have an amazing day. That's my start of the day. But how many people affirm themselves that way and actually try and do the best they can to live it out? So that is a thing for me. So whether someone praise me or not, I do the best that I can. It's sort of like, in the Bible, David encouraged himself, it says in the Word. Well, I'm kind of like that naturally. I am going to encourage myself regardless and despite of, because people will praise you and then go right around and you hear them talking about you a few minutes later. Was that real praise?
No.
Or was that just make-believe?
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to further that question. We're going to stay on it. Do you think that because we didn't get as much praise, do you think the lack of it hurt us?
Okay. Let's not use the word hurt.
Okay. Well, was it negative or not as positive or not?
Negative.
Okay.
It hindered.
There you go. Let's go there. Let's use that. Let's use that.
I think
I like it.
When this is just how Iman thinks.
Okay.
And most of the generation think. Well, I can't even speak for the rest of the generation.
But just try to, if you can, what most of them say. What do you hear?
See, because most of them will say, I don't understand what my parents are talking about. Okay. So I can't speak for them. Cause
okay.
I'm in a household to where all the time I'm hearing, well, if that was me when I was young, I would have got X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, okay, well, this is not X, Y, and Z, so.
Back in my day.
Right. If I would have said that, I would have got my, so yes. So I think it's if you do something, and let's just say you study really, really, really hard for a test, and you pass that test, and you come home and you tell your parents, Mom and Dad, I passed that test, and it goes unnoticed or ignored, a little piece of you is broken, or a little piece of you is diminished.
Yes.
Your light is toned down just a little bit. And if that keeps happening, that transfers into your adult life, that transfers to your kids that you have. So and I'm not saying the parents in the last generation did a terrible job. That's not what I'm saying. I just think that there should be some assessment going on the balance of when parents should be less authoritative. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot
So
of sense.
always having your thumb on something doesn't allow something to grow. And I think somebody I think I was watching something, I can't remember the specific source, but it was saying how mothers raise kids now. It's don't touch this, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, don't dance like that, don't do that. But you don't know, that could be the next Prince that you're telling not to do that. That could be the next Obama that you're telling not to speak like that. That's the next Michelle that you're telling not to go to law school. So I think when you're trying to control and dictate everything at once, and you're not letting children be children naturally, we don't know who we lost out on because of that. That's how I look at it. I think it's, in a way, you have to let children be children to a certain extent. Now, I'm not a parent myself, so I don't know what that governing looks and feels like. I'm only solely coming from a child's perspective of what that looks like, because I am a child and I have been a child, and the importance that was to me. Hey, did a good job. You took your test today? What'd you make? Oh, I made an 80. Okay, that's so good. Let's go get ice cream for that. Because I worked hard for that. I feel like Iman worked hard for that 80.
Yeah.
And then a wise fella in my life told me that you shouldn't be praised for things that you're expected to do.
The norm.
The norm. So that's just my little tip on that. So yeah.
You have to use it, I think, in moderation.
Absolutely.
And the thing that happened is that the parents can only do what they've been taught, and then their parents before them.
Right.
So we're part of a systematic way of being.
Right.
So conditionally, we have been trained in or taught, like our parents didn't have a parent manual, neither did their parent, and so they only did what they either saw their parents do or what they were taught from their parents. And then what happens is like, in this day and age, some parents become awoke and they have these epiphanies, and they're able to give their kids a little bit more than what their parents gave them. But then for those who don't become awoke, don't become to where they can understand what's happening, sometimes those kids can end up suffering because they didn't know no better. Mm-hmm. And then when you don't know no better, you can't do better. But then when you become a young adult and you get a little exposure to be able to find some things out for yourself, that's why it's so important as a young person and as a person as a whole. It is just so important to go and find things out for yourself, to study and read and try and get the information for yourself. If you have a question and you can't get the answer, mama's not able to answer that question, or daddy, go and try and find the answer or ask other questions to people who you think may be able to help you. And that's where your growth will start to even grow even more, because you're curious and your curiosity will help you grow. It's so incredible to be curious.
I see both sides. I see how it helps giving the compliments for praise and celebration, because as a child you do need that affirmation, but everybody cannot win. So I see it simultaneously, right. Because in life, what I did with my children is I wanted to make sure that I prepared them to walk outside my door and deal with this world. So we did have the comforts of, being at home, whether it be Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy or the Easter Bunny. We did that. We had a little fun with that. But then they came to a certain age where I had to prepare them to walk out my door. So there wasn't that much praise and affirmation at that point, because you perform whatever the norm is. That's your performance. That's your execution. And you're not going to get praised for doing what's normal and what's natural and what you're supposed to do. Now, when we were coming up, I saw a lot of people who, you could watch a movie where you see somebody just getting dogged out and they doing an excellent job. And they didn't get recognized until they were dead, or until they left the company, or until somebody else recognized them on the outside, So I see it on both sides, because I do think affirmation is very important, whether you're a child or an adult. But I see the pros and cons to that, and it'd be really a good conversation to put that out there and do some study on that.
Yes.
It'd be some good work, some real good work. So yeah, I see both sides. Okay, we'll start with you. No, I'll start with you, Ron.
Yeah.
How do you think the change in discipline styles has impacted from us to them?
How do I think the change in discipline
Discipline
styles
styles.
has
Yes, sir.
impacted from our generation to the
Yes.
generation
Yes,
now. Well, so when we were kids, discipline was more centered around how the Bible speaks of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
You spare the rod, you spoil the child. That meant, growing up in my family, being the fifth of 10 boys, if you did something, you wanted mama to give you the whooping, as opposed to her telling you, I'm going to tell your daddy. Oh, Lord, that's the whooping you didn't want. So me and my brothers used to always, we would play cry because we'd love for mama to give us the whooping. And then she would still sometime tell daddy, and then that's double trouble.
Right.
And then you had those communities back then where, a neighbor see you doing something, and they would put you in check and even possibly give you a whooping.
That's right.
But in this new generation that we're in, and I've seen parents come to the school, and their kids are dead wrong, and that child said, Mama, I didn't do nothing. Now, your child has been tearing up the house, let alone tearing up school. You come up there and you get talking crazy to the teacher.
That's right.
The next thing you know, we've seen it all online now because everybody's got phone. Mama getting into a knockdown drag out with the teacher. And that's because mama and or some daddies have not been taught the right type of parenting. And so they're only doing that's the thing about it is, sometimes I really don't want to kind of cast blame because I think about what you see in some of these parents doing. You got a young mom that has a child that's in the 3rd or 4th grade. Her mom was young, that had her when she was, very young. And she only raised her according to what she thought and knew how to raise her. And they all was kind of raised in the same type of environment, in the projects or what have you. Not everybody, but at the same time. But that child got away with so many things. You remember, even right now, you got a kid that'll come in the room and curse somebody out and everybody would laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Not in our day.
No, sir.
You better not say no bad word.
You can do it once.
And, hey.
Once.
Give me that soap. I'm going to put that soap in your mouth. I'm going to clean it. So all of those things. But now, it become a joke. Like, you hear him tell so that boy's so bad or she's so bad. And I have a thing. That's another affirmation right there. I just think that when you tell a child you so bad, that become a stain in their brain. And if they're doing things that are uncommon, they find that to be something like normal. And if it's normal, then when they get older and they do those things, it become a crime then. And then it become criminality. That's why we got so many young people in our country that are in prison and being charged with adult crime because they did not get the redirecting that they needed to be able to have a better cognitive way of thinking later on. And we're talking later on, 12, 13, 14 years old. That's what I think.
Okay. Iman?
Well, I piggyback off everything he says.
Okay.
I totally agree with that. I think my generation, I don't think we really know what discipline looks like. And constant discipline. Like, it's not all across the board. It might just be at home, or it might just be at dad's house, or it might just be at mom's house. It's not, we don't fear the teachers telling our parents, the parents having a conversation and then disciplining us, or your mom tell your aunt and she take you to your aunt's house. I don't think we don't fear things anymore, and that respect level is gone. So I think once you take respect out of it, then you take fear out of it.
Wow.
And then
no
you take,
discipline?
right, exactly. So then all of that together, those 3 combos, then you get what you get.
Wow.
I wish I could raise a daughter like you.
Wow.
That's something else right
Powerful,
there.
I'm a
man.
That's something
unicorn,
else.
and I just want to let everybody know that I am magical and I am out here.
Okay.
And I am real.
Yes, I love it.
I'm
The
a
exception
real
to the
thing.
rule.
Yes,
That
sometimes.
That was well said.
Sometimes. Thank you.
Wow, that was
Well
well said.
spoken.
Like, yeah, no doubt. Okay. I think the change in the disciplining styles is huge. I think we need to get very, very specific and be mature about the words abuse and discipline. One is out of anger to try to hurt, and it's out of ignorance, and the other one is for correction and out of love to get peace. So it's a difference because you're trying to guide and direct. When you said guide and direct, you said I forgot the words that you used. I wanted to use those words. I was listening to what you said. Like when you guide and the way you want to rear the child, you want them to go in a certain direction.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why you do the discipline. But now when we say abuse, anytime a child gets hit, they call it abuse. So now, but now to what you said, Iman, when you don't discipline them, where is the correction? How do you correct something if you cannot straighten it out?
I think the abuse part comes from the European side of it. That has a lot to do with it. I think it has a lot to do with the European mindset on how you raise children. Because unfortunately, I was watching a clip from Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and I think Kris Jenner's boyfriend, he's this black dude, I forget his name, and one of the Kardashians said, "Oh, she scratched the nanny." Oh, and I don't think, she was like, "Oh, it's not a big deal," and the mom was like, "That's a big deal," and her boyfriend was like, "Oh, I would X, Y, and Z your child," and then one of the parents was like, "If you ever put your hands on my child, like I would, blah blah," and the black dude was like, "I will beat you." Literally, like, so he was like, he said, "You don't," he was, the conversation was is very interesting. The two different perspectives on discipline, and they were like, "Well, you said that you would hit my child, and da da da. You can never come around with child," and then he was like, "That's what you're supposed to do. You're getting upset, and you're brainwashed, and you're getting mad at me because that's how it's supposed to be." I think it was very.
So I need to do this disclaimer before we go. So I want everybody to understand all the views and the things that are said is in no reflection on WVOL 1470. Anything that is said or expressed is not the views of WVOL 1470. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I jump in and say that, one of the things that when we think about discipline, we have to go all the way back to the days that they snatched the Africans up and they brought them across the Middle Passage. And one of the things that would always happen is when a slave got out of order, the way they would redirect a slave was through different forms of discipline, all the way to the point of hanging them. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, we saw discipline as a people very early on, as when someone do something wrong, you are to beat them. Mm-hmm. Even though we had the Bible that we were also read into to say, you spare the rod, you spoil a child, and so on. But what you find is that is, I think, is where the abuse ended up coming in. We were already being abused and beaten to a pulp for getting a drink of water from a day's work of cotton if you wasn't told to get a drink of water, and so on and so forth. But now what we find is that discipline is being constructed or redirected through a form of anger. And when you discipline through a form of anger, that's discipline a child from a traumatic space. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about hurting people. Mm-hmm. That's what happens. And so when a father or someone gets mad and you hear about all these tragic things that happen, it's because of anger and the self-control, where you lose control and it only happens in a moment.
That's right.
And if you could turn back the hands of time, you would change that moment, because no one literally really wants to hurt their child, but at the same time, you're only doing what you have learned. And you got to remember, the things that we find ourselves doing are learned behaviors. And we learned them from somewhere along the line. And a lot of it was passed down through us, through some of the old slave masters, on how we used to get beaten for all kinds of things as slaves. And then, when we became free people, we raised our children according to not the African tradition, because the African tradition was more so centered around the village raising the child. We knew without a doubt that, it was the village. And then also that was also where we talked about the rites of passage, where you taught a kid on how and what being a man and a woman was all about. But in America, in our growing up, we wasn't really taught how to be a man, and then, or taught how to be a woman. And then, you got boys being raised by women, and women believing that they can raise a boy and teach him how to be a man, but that's impossible. And I know that could be debated, but at the same time, the discipline comes from how we've been systematically, conditionally trained on this certain way. Because I think if you start early enough redirecting a child, that child will gain that thought as a memory in their brain. And when you said stop, that child, it would register.
Oh, I know.
But when you don't see, because my kids, I
learned
never
very
whooped
early
none of
on.
my, I never whooped none of my smaller kids. Ron never whooped those the two smaller ones, because I started them where I could just you better and give them that look, and it was almost if it was a whooping that I was going to pass out, they'd already gotten it. And now that is when you start early, because you train. That's that train a child up when they're young, and when they get old, they won't depart. That's what training a child up really truly is, because you train their brain to be receptive to being redirected when that's hot. And when you tell them that hot that one time, most of them that's been trained well enough, they're not gonna go and touch it. But ones that with the curiosity, they might touch it and find out that it is hot, and then they probably won't touch it again. But that is where I think, we've just fallen off, because we've been so conditioned by the things that are so connected to us for so many years.
We want to open up those phone lines. We want to make sure we got somebody listening out there on the airwaves. You can reach us at 615. The number is 227-1470. Again, that number is 615-227-1470. Okay, so now you said a lot. So I want to go back to when you were speaking on the slavery piece. Again, the small definition that I tried to give, the difference in that is that was done out of fear, out of anger, and out of hate. That was not discipline. That was abuse. Right. So then again, you could do the very same thing if you take the mother or the father of the slave child. If you had a young man child or a boy, you had to discipline him, because he could get killed if he did not have discipline. You couldn't afford for him to not be obedient, because it could get him killed. So now out of love, out of love, out of peace, out of guidance, then you get discipline. Mm-hmm. But it can still be the whooping, and it's not as fierce. You don't rip the skin, all that kind of thing, and you stay consistent with it, and it's out of love. Mm-hmm. So that's going to create balance. So then you said you moved away from that, and you went to your children. Now, I have seen kids who their parents didn't whoop them. Okay, then that went to the left. You have a gift with young people. See, and I always tell you this.
Very true.
You can't tell people to do what you do, because you are the exception to the rule. It doesn't work like that. And then, for the people like myself that did discipline their children, it was very rare that I had to do it, because I was very consistent. Mm-hmm. And then I've seen the child that gets beat all the time, get the brakes beat off of them, and still out here cutting the food. Yeah. So I've seen that whole gamut. Mm-hmm. So when to do what? How do you balance that out? That would be another good conversation to put some resources behind and get into that, and get some real good answers. Okay, we're gonna move on to that next question. How should we handle? Ron, I'll start with you. How should we handle that old saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same, in regards to the millennial and our generation?
How should we handle that? The more things change, the more things stay the same. Well, just like anything, you handle it, you would hope that it would be handled. And I can give you my definition of handling the more things change, the more things stay the same is how well have I prepared myself to handle the changes that is before me? In other words, things that I cannot control, I do the best that I can to make sure that I am prepared if and when those things come at me. For instance, so if a storm is going down outside, when there ain't no tornado warning, I still can get in my car and drive and turn the wipers on and go. But if I know that this storm is coming and they're telling me that there's a possible chance of a tornado, I shouldn't be as bold to just go out there and get in the car. I should really pay attention to that. So I think the way you handle, and when it seems like things stay the same, I think it's more so because when you think that you can keep doing the same thing that you've always done and expect different results, you have fooled yourself. So you have to be willing to make the necessary changes. For instance, we're in a different time.
That's right.
There's no way that I'm going to, you get to telling a kid, back in my day. Well, I always tell a parent, we're not in your day, we're in today. So if it being today, you're going to have to deal with, because your kid got access to more things than you can imagine. You talk crazy enough of your child and they record it and they come down to the police, they'll take you to jail. So you have to make absolutely sure as a parent, as an adult, that you make the necessary adjustments to handle the things that are changing. But then some of those things are almost like the cycle of things repeating itself. But you got to know how to handle those things. You can't get mad about things that you don't know anything about. And you got to be willing to be educated, because you can learn from anybody. You can learn from a child. You can learn from older folks. You can learn from anybody. So you have to be open and receptive to that, because that is where you'll be able to handle the things staying the same or things changing. You'll be able to make the adjustments. I hope I answered that. I felt like I...
Yeah, I agree. And as a millennial, when I hear older folks say, well, if this happened, this would happen to us. And it's not... Last Next Generation conversation, my dad used the word entitlement. I don't feel entitled. Okay. Apparently I do.
No, you don't. No. No. I can't tell you how you feel. It's just... Yeah.
Okay, well...
I can't tell you how to feel.
But a lot of times, it's frustrating on my part if it's a disciplined conversation, situation, and there's laughter, memories of what happened if I was in their time. I don't know how that feels. So I'm standing there like,
that's right,
like a deer in the headlights. Unfortunately, so I just shut down, because I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. So I when I was younger, my parents, we would do this often, at least once a week. It was a safe space. You can talk to mommy and daddy. It wasn't disrespectful. It was just saying, like, let's just say my dad said something that made me feel some type of way. I can say, hey, Daddy, I didn't understand what you were saying, and it kind of hit me the wrong way. Could you explain this more? And then he would explain it, and then I will understand why. So, my upbringing is I was able to say, hey, Dad, I didn't really understand this, or that hit me some type of way, so now I feel like this, or I'm just probably just gonna shut down because I don't like how this is making me feel. So that's how I identify with it. So and it's funny when I'm at family functions and all the older generation is laughing and saying what would have been said or how they would have got hit or what situation it would have looked like, and so we looking at like sipping our Hennessy like okay, y'all have that. We're just gonna go outside and watch these YouTube videos or whatever and talk about whoever is popular at that time. So I think it's interesting. I find it fascinating how the different upbringings are, because on both sides of my family, I see both sides. I see where you walked in the house and you breathed wrong, you got a shoe thrown at you. And or I see, I have a story of well, not me personally, but my grandmother on my mom's side cracked the ketchup bottle, the old glass, and threatened to cut my uncle. So and I remember looking at my sister like, whoa. I don't yeah, that's probably when we would have probably tried to run away like we did. So, I don't, I think it's all interesting.
It is.
So interesting. So it would be very interesting to see.
There you go.
It would be very interesting to see how my kids are raised, because I know my dad's going to have a lot of laughter moments.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it'll be... Oh, Lord. Okay. Well, go ahead.
So when we say the more things change, the more they stay the same, the way that I see it with the two difference of the generation, I'll say diligence, respect, hard work, morals, ethics, drive, passion. Those things will never change. That is success. That is a good day. That will help you in life. When you destroy, disrupt, when you're negative, when you foul, when you're disrespectful, when you're lazy and you shiftless, that's going to give you a negative outcome in life. You're not going to do well with that type of attitude. So that's when I say the more things change, the more they stay the same. To me, those are staples. The tree, the way it's growing out the ground, that's never going to change. It's organic. That is at the core. That is how things work. Now, you can plant these GMOs. You can have a 6-week chicken. You can do it. That's changing. But, that chicken still got to lay that egg. But now you can do it in 6 weeks, and they can rush the process. So I see it both ways. I see it on both sides, but we have to find out, hey, how can we merge these two, have this, bring us together instead of separating us? Like she said, she don't really connect with the way that we were raised, and we don't really connect sometimes with the way they were raised, but we just seen that cycle. I was telling some young people, and I said, not to disrespect you, because Ron, we'd have this conversation all the time. You, if somebody is 15, 20 years older than you, you are making the mistakes today that you don't even know you're going to have to correct 20 years from now. What you're doing today, you're living right now.
Yep.
In 20 years, you're going to be correcting that wrong, whether it's having a baby, laying down with the wrong man or woman, whether it's buying a house prematurely, getting into a car that you can't afford. You're going to be fixing problems later. Yes. Then you're going to see what that wisdom was all about. You don't know what you don't know. Yes. And all you know is all you learn. Okay? And so that's, when I see that, the more things change, the more they stay the same. They're going to be that elder. Then they're going to laugh. She's going to be laughing at her children. She's going to laugh at her grandchildren. Mm-hmm. Then she'll see what we were talking about. Because a lot of times, they didn't tell us. They just said, keep living.
Yep,
I
keep
think
living.
That is one of the most horrible statements somebody ever said to me. Because it was so powerful, and they didn't give me no guidance behind that statement. That was, that's crazy.
I think that's some of the best advice.
It is, but it's
so
loaded.
It didn't have no substance.
Yeah. Because you have to have wisdom to catch it.
It had substance, but it did. But it was hard to pick it up.
Yeah.
It was hard to pick up, keep living, because you felt like, okay, what does that mean?
Right.
I'm living. I'm doing what I need or want to do every day. So what do you mean? And they'll just say, keep living. So what I did with a group of guys, they told a young guy this at one of the Bible studies I was at. I said, when you say that to a young person in this day and age, I think you need to explain to them what you mean, because you'll be able to help them more now. Now, back then, keep living was a little bit different because we didn't have the access that our kids have now. See, the access they have now, you telling them keep living can be keep living to be killed next week. But keep living now is more so. Let me tell you why I'm saying keep living. Because if you keep going around that corner where they having shootouts at every day, you may not be living after that day. So I'm telling you to keep living, but I want you to think about it. Don't go around there as often as you go the other way. You see what's happening around there. You know without a doubt those people that you're hanging with don't mean you no good. That's what keep living mean. You know without a doubt that person did not mean you well, and then something jumps off and you're locked up or you got a situation and you think about that keep living and they free and you locked up. And then they say snitches get stitches. But you about to do the time for not doing the crime. I'm sorry. That's where the keep living part of things need to be explained to our young people.
I think when I say you don't know what you don't know, we've all seen a good friend, a family member, our spouse doing something they swear they dead on. They swear they standing on the truth, and they so far away from the truth they can't spell it. But then when they figure out that they were doing it out of ignorance, and then you've been telling them the whole time, everybody see the elephant in the room but them. So when they say keep living, you can only see as far as your experience can take you. And, the younger you are, the less experience you lack. That's never a negative when I say that. But I say that often because experience, you can't teach it. You can't read it. You can't eat it. You can't sleep it. You have to live it.
That's an everyday statement.
Every day. And it's not going to change.
It's not going to change because it has its own life.
Come on. Okay, so how do you handle the distractions in comparison to our generation, the technology, like the phones and the emails and the Instagram? How do those distractions affect you?
Wow.
Versus the way it was, 20, 30 years ago.
Are you asking?
But what part does that play?
Oh, it consumes us.
Okay.
So it's literally our life. Like I remember one day I was just laying down, just chilling in my room, and I looked up and I was on social media for an hour.
Time gone.
That's an hour I could have been writing, or that's an hour I could have made a phone call to an aunt, or that's an hour I could have been doing laundry or whatever. I've lost time on social media. So I think our distractions now, like especially like with the dating scene or situationships, ladies and gentlemen, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
The distractions that we have now, it's like we have this mindset of, well, if I don't find it here, I'll find it somewhere else. And that's not how you, first of all, that's not how you work on yourself. You know, so if you're always trying to find it to see if you're always going to look to see if the grass is greener on the other side, you're never going to see your grass. You're never going to culture your own grass. So I think that's huge. I think social media, the clubs, the events that are going on, I genuinely think that they're all distractions, and they're distractions created from hurt people. So I think it's a way for them to, like, if I'm a guy and I continue to throw these parties, heels and stilettos,
Mm-hmm.
that's my dysfunction. I would rather see girls in heels and stilettos instead of throwing a brunch, gentlemen and ladies, or classy women. You know what I'm saying? Like,
word,
stuff like that.
yeah.
So if you're always in the scene where you're promoting stilettos and the short dresses and, you know, the things that are hanging out that are not dad approved outfits.
Cut low and cut high.
Yeah, cut low and cut high.
Yeah.
I think those are all distractions. So I've definitely noticed that, especially in the African American scene. I think we do things to heal, but we're not noticing that we're trying to heal from it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So,
We think we're doing things to heal, but we don't have the tools or the knowledge to really understand what that healing looks like.
right.
Because you got to remember, when you think about hurt or you think about trauma, that's a thing that sets in a part of our brain that can lay dormant for years.
Yes.
You know, like we're in the Me Too movement, and you have people who have brought things up that happened to them 20, 30 years ago, and they never mention it to anyone. But it laid in a dark space in their brain, and some of the research that's out there that tells you, you know, we are living right now where people epiphanies of things that has happened to them are coming back as if it happened yesterday or moments ago. And they're reliving that because that hurt is coming up. But the good thing about that hurt is I always say, feel what you feel, because what you feel will end up helping you heal. Feel what you feel, because what you feel can help you heal. And then what happens is, once you start the healing, you start to talk about it. You start to have conversations about it. You know, we don't do enough as far as African American about our mental illness. And that's one of the things that we find in that social world. That social world has a mental component to it.
Absolutely.
And it really consumes you in
draining,
ways like no other. It takes you, it's like you are totally, you have having an out of body experience where
like zombies.
You can be for hours. You could be sitting right next to someone and you can text them on the phone as opposed to talking to them.
I've seen people on dates.
And they text one another.
That on the phone showing the pictures. I'm like, so what did you invite that person out for? Y'all could have did this at home. I honestly, it's
Let's see. Let's get, because we're gonna get ready. We ended in near our time. We got some stuff we need to do. So how do you think we could? What's some techniques and tools you think we could do to help those distractions? Trying to curb that.
Well, here are some things that I know that you can do that can help you fight and combat some of the distractions that you have. Instead of that hour that you use to do your social media stuff, and I'm not saying that you need to take those things away, but pick up a book and read. Because reading is one of the most general exercises, just like lifting weights, that the brain can have.
That's right.
But it also expands the brain. It helps heal the brain. But then not only that, you know, take a mental health day for yourself. Like literally take a mental health day. Because we all battle with something that has attacked us in a way mentally that we probably never shared with someone. We all have, young and old alike. And then number 3, I think one of the most important things out of it all is don't be afraid or ashamed to go and talk to somebody.
That's right.
Who is a professional in helping you healed. That could be your pastor. That could be mama and them, granny and them, Uncle Bubba and them. That could be all of those people who can give you some sound advice that can help you start the healing process. And then here's the thing. Discipline determines your destination, not your desires. We all desire to do a lot of things, but what I'm talking about, you have to be disciplined.
Okay. Those are okay. You want to give? What are some tools and techniques you think we can use to?
Hard. That helps you help you.
Yes.
That I think that is so important. And for me, it's just genuinely not doing anything because I'm usually doing something. I'm usually doing something for somebody else. So for me to just not do anything, to me that's like the best.
It's big.
Yeah, and it's hard to force myself not to do anything. It's like, you can't do anything. You can't help this person today. You can't, it's no for me in my vocabulary is it's a word I'm learning.
And turn your phone off.
There you go. That's what I was going to wrap
Turn
it
it
up.
off when you lie down to sleep. Turn it off. Turn the phone off. People, I'm
that's
telling you.
That's going to be hard for our generation.
Hey, turn it off
absolutely.
while you sleep. Because I have witnessed a child sleep and that phone vibrate on the other side of the room, my grandson. And he get up out of the bed from a dead sleep. From a vibrating phone on the carpet floor, not a wood floor.
Not a carpet floor.
I'm like, how did he hear that? And we can shout from the other end of the room, Timothy! And he won't budge. But that phone vibrate, and it's almost like it's connected to him electronically, that energy that's connected.
Yeah.
Turn that thing off, and it will change your life. Just try it.
That was going to definitely be one of mine. It's like just any type of electronics, period. You just need to use your mind so that you can tap into your cognitive thinking because there's so much input coming from the computer, coming from the social media. There's so much stimulation, you can become overstimulated.
Yes.
So you need to turn that stuff off, and then you need to do some outputting instead of inputting. You need to sit down and have a conversation with another person. Okay,
Yes.
not on the FaceTime, not on the
chat.
Snap, whatever.
Personal
All that
Face
stuff.
chat. He's showing his age.
None of that. None of that. Just sit down and have a conversation with somebody in your house. Somebody sitting right next to you. Don't talk to somebody in Europe. Don't go talk to somebody that's not there. You can send a text message and somebody could pick that up and it could be a robot texting you back. You don't know. Pick up the phone, man, or just go talk to somebody in your house.
Yes.
Just don't always be on that electronic social media part of that thing. Do some outputting instead of just keep getting the input.
Because those things are what we call TV program, radio program, telephone program, computer program. So what they are doing is programming you to dive into the program. And you have to be willing to turn the program off so you won't be programmed.
Okay, so we're going to, Ron, where can they catch up with you at? Give them some information.
They can reach me via email at ronjohnsonspeaking@gmail.com. That's ronjohnsonspeaking@gmail.com. Or you can go to my website. It is streetsolid.org. Streetsolid.org. And you can reach me from both of those platforms right there.
Okay. Iman, where can they reach you?
That is a very good question.
That's a good question. That's good. So you're not social media?
I do have social media. Follow your girl on Queen Amir. That's QUEEN_AMYRE on Instagram.
Okay, so now you can also go check out Ron Johnson on the YouTube Clipperdome Chronicles page. You can go to YouTube Clipperdome Chronicles. There's an interview with Ron and I there with the real program. That's a mentoring piece that he does. So Ron, the new foundation is called
Street Solid.
Street Solid. Okay.
Street Solid.
So yeah, you can go and see Ron's past history and what he does, and you can see us on the YouTube Clipperdome Chronicles page. That's video number 28. That's video number 28 on the YouTube's Clipperdome Chronicles page. Okay, so now we're going to wrap this up. We want you to take this. We want you to test this. We want you to try this. We want you to take it to the barbershop or take it to the hair salon. Take it to the job or take it to the church. Remember, you don't have to like it, believe it, or understand it. Sometimes you just have to respect it. This is the Clipperdome Chronicles. Thank you.